has. Now, I just didn't know, would they be able to be consistent enough, to beat a champion? And they're proving America wrong. They're proving the pundits wrong right before our eyes. They can be consistent. They can make pivotal plays and pivotal moments. And Billy Donovan, for a first-year coach in the NBA, is doing a hell of a job, on that sideline for the Thunder.
If you go back to previous podcasts, I said the same thing. I said if Oklahoma City can find a way to get past the Spurs, they match up well with Golden State. Sports are matchups, and it doesn't matter how good or how bad you are. If you don't match up well with your opponent, you're going to have problems with them. And that's what you're seeing right now with the Golden State Warriors. The second thing that I take exception to go back to my original point, is the fact that so many people are saying that if the Golden State Warriors don't win the NBA title, their 73-9 regular season record means nothing. And that's preposterous. How can people... It's unbelievable to me how anyone can fix their mouth to say that you win 73 games, the most of any team in the history of the association, but it means nothing unless you win a championship. It's unbelievable, and it's unfortunate for the Warriors. And I'll go back and again repeat something I said a long time ago. The Warriors could have been swept in the first round by the Houston Rockets, and it still wouldn't have taken away the incredible job they did during the regular season. It's historic, and you cannot dock them for anything they do past that point. Once they reach that 73 win plateau, that was it. I mean, it's history, and you can't take it away from them.
Well, I mean, you definitely can't take 73 wins away from them, because they did that. I mean, it's in the history books now. But, I mean, Pierre, if they don't win this championship, it's going to put a little tarnish on their season. I mean, you go back to, you hearken to the New England Patriots when Randy Moss was with Tom Brady, and they were demolishing people in the regular season, went through the regular season, went through the playoffs, and they lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. I mean, they had a historic season. Tom Brady broke records. Randy Moss broke records. But they didn't, put that proverbial icing on the cake by winning the championship. And now you can't take anything away from 73 wins. They broke Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls record for regular season victories. But the Bulls topped that off with a championship to validate that many wins. I mean, those wins are going to go in the record books, but if they don't win a championship, especially in this day and age where everyone has a voice, that no one will really talk about the regular season. They're going to talk about who won the championship. And especially if they don't even make it to the finals, it's going to be pretty rough, a really rough offseason if Golden State doesn't find a way to go to Oklahoma City and win Game 6 and go back home to the Bay and win Game 7 in Oracle.
And there's so much more that I want to talk about on this subject, but we got to take a break right now. We'll be right back on the All Things Sport podcast on Spreaker Radio.
Hi, this is Damian Banks. Thank you for listening to the All Things Sport podcast. You can also catch me on the Puff TV Morning Combo on Blog Talk Radio every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. Call 347-677-0956 and I'll give you Sports by Damian.
The All Things Sport podcast.
We go back like spinal cords and car seats.
With Damian Banks and Pierre Banks on Spreaker Radio.
Welcome back to the All Things Sport podcast. I'm Damian. He's Pierre. We're broadcasting live. Well, I'm broadcasting live from Banks Boys Studios in Durham, North Carolina. Pierre is in Banks Boys Studios in Columbia, South Carolina. Again, thank you for listening to the podcast. Download the podcast. Look at the YouTube channels. Read the blogs on banksboy.com. BANKSBOY.com. Now, Pierre, before we went to break, we were talking about how the Golden State Warriors' historic regular season, in some people's eyes, not yours, may not mean anything if they're not able to win the NBA championship. Now, you were saying that, you can't take away those 73 wins, which is so very true. That is, it hasn't been done before. It's the first time anyone in NBA history has won that many games in a regular season. But what I was saying is, a lot of people think, and myself included, it takes a little bit of luster off of their season if they're not able to capture that championship to put that proverbial icing on that cake that they baked during the regular season.
The fact of the matter is that it's only one team in the league, in the association each year that walks away the way that they want to walk away. And that's the team that walks away with the NBA Finals trophy. And you can have 50 wins in the regular season and win the finals. You can have 60 wins and win the finals. These gentlemen won 73 games in the regular season. That means they only lost 9 games. Out of 82, they only lost 9 games all season. You can go play pickup for 10 years and not win 73 games. I guarantee you. You can go get
he said play pickup.
Your twin brother Damon, Quentin G's, Spoon G's. You can get World. Y'all can go out and go to various places to play pickup. And I guarantee you in 10 years you will not win 73 games. They did it in a season. I completely agree. If they don't win an NBA championship, it takes away from what it is they actually wanted to accomplish. Everyone wants to win the championship as the season begins, but you can't take away from the accomplishments that these gentlemen have right now. Best record in league history. All the hard work that went into it. And it's just like Draymond Green said the other day, we worked too hard. We played too well up until this point to go out like this. And he's right. They did work hard and they did get to a point to where if they don't win the championship, it's kind of like, oh man, we worked this hard. We had all these accomplishments and, we didn't win the championship. But I don't want him or anyone to feel like if they don't win that championship at the end of the season, that their season meant nothing. And that's the first thing I hear coming out of people's mouths.
Bruh, for real. Let's be serious. If they don't win this championship, history is going to not be very kind to the Golden State Warriors. You already have a lot of basketball minds, that don't love their style of play. They don't think that they would be their style of play would translate throughout the annals of the game. So especially now, that's just going to make them seem right if they don't win this championship when they're playing a fully loaded, Western Conference. They're going to get demolished in the annals of history, man. They better come back and win this series against Oklahoma City, and they better beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in the finals, which I don't think if they beat Oklahoma City, they're not going to beat Cleveland in this year's finals.
That team will go down in history, and it will go down in history as the best regular season team to ever be in the National
And that's
Basketball
not. I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm not disputing
now,
that.
whatever happens from that point is playoff basketball. Now, as far as regular seasons, they have the best team to ever play in the NBA. And that's just the way it is, and again, they could have got swept in the first round and that still would have been true. You can't take away those guys' accomplishments and everything that they work hard for. Everyone wants to win the championship, but they still won 73 games, whether they lose on Saturday night to the Oklahoma City Thunder or whether Dwight Howard and company would have knocked them off in the first round. They still would have won. They still have won 73 games in the regular season.
Let me stop you there. If the Golden State Warriors would have lost to the Houston Rockets in the first round of the NBA playoffs, I would have cut every single lock off of my head. That wasn't going to happen. The Houston Rockets were god awful, so that wasn't going to happen. They beat the Rockets without Steph Curry, man. So that tells you they're a good team. They're just running into a really, really good team right now who's clicking on all cylinders in the Oklahoma City Thunder. So it's no shame if they lose to the Thunder, but in the annals of history, when you look back at it, they're going to look at the 2015, 2016 season. They're going to look and see who were the champions first and foremost. Then they're going to talk about how Golden State, beat, they broke that record that the Chicago Bulls once held. I mean, that's how the world of sports works, man. That you're known. Everything is based off championships. I mean, this is a team sport, so they're not basing it off of what they did in the regular season. And for right or wrong, they had a great regular season. You can't take that away from the Warriors. But if they don't win this championship, you and I both know, right or wrong, they're going to be looked at as they're not the best team ever. If they win a championship, how could you not say you have good argument to say that they're the best team ever? They have the most regular season wins and they won the championship. I mean, that's a great argument right there. But if they don't win a championship, how could you argue they won one more game than the Bulls but they didn't win a championship? So that kind of squashes that argument.
And you're right, but that's not my argument. My argument is that regular season wise, they won 73 games, more than anybody in the history of the league. So they are, in fact, the best team, regular season team in NBA history. What happens from that point has no effect on the time, preparation, hard work, dedication, everything they put into winning those 73 games during the regular season. You can't take away from that just because of what they did or did not do in the playoffs. Could they be considered one of the best teams ever if they win the finals? Absolutely. But it doesn't take away from what they did just because they didn't win the playoffs. And anybody who says that it means nothing has probably never played regulation sports before, because you know what it takes into getting prepared for a season. You know what it takes to go in and week out and go through practices. And nobody likes to practice and all the workouts and going into those games, and you got a target on your back. This is a team that won an NBA championship last year. So it's not like they came from obscurity and, they crept up on every team. They had a target on their back, man. They started out the season with 23 straight wins? This is with a target on their back. So that makes it even more impressive what they did in the regular season. And for anybody to say that what they did means nothing if they don't so happen to win the NBA championship, you're a clown. That's
your humbles. Now you're being very, very disrespectful calling people clowns because people have their own opinions. I'm not saying that it doesn't mean anything. I'm not one of those people that say that their 73 wins don't mean anything if they don't win a championship. I'm saying that it's going to make me look at them as a lesser team in general if they don't win the chip. It's all about winning the chip, man. It's not about how many games you win during the regular season. Most of the time, the NFL, the Super Bowl champion is not the team that won the most games in the regular season. It's the team that plays well in the playoffs, that beats who's in front of them, and they get to the Super Bowl and they win that game. So for that season, they were the champions. So, I mean, that's what this society, our favorite team is the San Francisco 49ers. Former head coach Mike Singletary said it best. I want winners.
They won 73 games. How much more winning can you do? It's like the Kentucky Wildcats from a couple years back. Went to the Final Four undefeated and lost.
And I'm glad you brought that up.
That doesn't take away from what they did going undefeated throughout the entire season up until that point. That's a hell of a season, man. You can't take away from that.
It is, but no one is going to talk about that. They're going to talk about how the Blue Devils won the NCAA championship.
And they're still going to talk about that Kentucky team. Everybody recognizes the talent and how great that Kentucky team was. No one leaves them out of the annals of history because they lost in the Final Four. Everybody talks about how great that team was.
Yes, they are, man. They didn't win the championship. They didn't win the chip. They didn't win the chip, man.
Do you remember who that team was?
No, I don't. Only person I remember on that team.
Yes, you do, because you say you glad I brought it up.
I'm glad. I don't remember who their players were, but I remember who Jahlil Okafor was. I know who Tyus Jones is. I know who.
You remember Karl Anthony Towns?
I know who he is, but I can't name. I could not name. Listen, Pierre, I could not name the starting five for that Kentucky team. They didn't win the chip. They don't matter to me. They didn't win the chip.
You can't even name the starting five.
I can't name their starting five.
Can you name their starting five from Duke?
I can.
No, you can't. Let's hear
yeah.
it. Let the All Things Sports listeners hear.
I can.
Let the All Things Sports podcast listeners hear. Come on, and don't look at your phone because
listen.
I'm looking at you, so don't look at your phone. And who's the?
You say you're listening? Okay. Okay. So point guard.
Exactly.
You know they shared the point guard. You know they shared duties. It was Tyus Jones And then you had Jahlil Okafor. Then you had crazy hair for the Miami Heat now. Justice Winslow. I call him crazy hair. Marshall Plumlee. And then you got the point guard, the kid from Baltimore. What was his name? He was a senior.